All right, what's going on, everybody? It's Ricardo Hamilton, aka Crypto Rick. We got a phenomenal show for you guys today. Look, my partner Mike is out for tonight, but man, I thought about what was going on in the economy, and I'm seeing that people are waking up and realizing that they need a better way, and people are realizing what's taking place in the silver market, what's taking place in cryptocurrency, and everything else. And tonight I wanted tonight's show to be about the history of money and banking. All right. And the reason I chose that is because, Maya Angelou said that you can't really know where you are going until you know where you have been. Right. So you can't really know where you're going until you know where you have been. And when I think about the quote and I think about where the world finds itself right now, in these very uncharted territory, unique times, biblical times, if you ask me, that we find ourselves in, people are wondering, where are we going? What does the other side of this crisis look like? How did we get here? What are the solutions? And when I think about the number one problem that we all have, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your color, the number one problem that plagues the planet, okay, is central banks and the banks that grow up around them. It's this debt-based fiat monetary system. And a lot of the issues, a lot of the problems, a lot of the things that we're seeing today is a direct result of the monetary system, right? So what I wanted to do was, specifically, I wanted to show the US debt clock, all right? So people can understand where we are in this economy right now. And then I'm going to go over what they have as the banking and monetary history, understanding how we got to paper money, why the world accepted paper money, what is the value of the paper money, and what is the end result of having central banks run our country, run the world, and the banks that grow up around them. And so you'll hear Mike say on this show, and we're talking about crashing JP Morgan, he'll say, this is a quote or a term that's very popular because these are one of the criminal banking empires, okay, that create debt and death, okay, all around the planet, all right? And so one of the major things that they're known for is rigging the metals market, physical silver, okay? And so a lot of the financial institutions and the banks and everything, they don't want us to know the real value of gold, right? They don't want us to own and hold real money. They want us to be in debt. They don't want us to have freedom, liberties, right? They don't want us to enjoy the pursuit of our happiness, right? So they don't want us to have these assets, so they make them look very unattractive in regards to an investment, right? And so that's why you see now gold and silver going down in the markets. So let me share my screen here, okay? I want to share my screen, all right? Just to start it off here. Like I said, Maya Angelou said, you won't know where you're going till you know where you've been, okay? Well, where are we right now? Right now, this country, okay, the United States, right, corporation, whatever you want to call it, we're not going to get that deep tonight, all right? Over 27, almost $28 trillion in debt, okay, in debt. The national public debt outstanding represents the face amount or principal amount of marketable and non-marketable securities currently outstanding, okay? All them treasury notes and bills and things that they're issuing out, the national debt. And if you see right next to it, what does it say? Debt per citizen. The debt per citizen, yes, you and me, every citizen is about $84,000. Every citizen owe about $84,000, okay? Now, most people should be like, how the heck do I owe $84,000? I ain't borrow that. Well, they're doing things in your name, okay, and you got to pay for it. They're talking about debt per taxpayer, $223,000. U.S. federal spending. I mean, when you look at the U.S. federal debt to GDP ratio, okay, we're over 130%. We're bankrupt. It's unsustainable, okay? And then you talk about an economy in collapse. We are in a collapsing economy. The economy is not improving. The financial situation is not getting better, right? And so while they're trying to paint the picture that they fixed the issue, they solved the problem, right? We're just going to print more money, quantitative easing. We're going to give out stimulus checks. It's just temporary until the economy recovers. It doesn't work like that because this is a global, interconnected economy, okay? And so other countries around the world are already de-dollarizing. They're already making preparations and hedging for a new economy outside of the dollar, dealing with precious metals, gold, okay? Dealing with cryptocurrency, right? And so when you understand where we are right now and you understand where we have been, you know where we're going, and then you know how to position yourself. So this is the usdebtclock.org. They got a lot of valuable information on here when you look at the numbers, because like they say, men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. And these are the hardcore numbers, not the manipulated and rigged, adjusted numbers that the government wants you to see to paint a picture that everything is okay. Okay, these numbers are actually more accurate. All right, when you look at U.S. unfunded liabilities, let me zoom in down here, folks. Hope you guys can see that. Unfunded liabilities. You remember hearing Congress and them talk about, well, we got to cut Medicaid and Medicare. We got to cut Social Security. We got to cut, what's the other? There's three of them, right? All these unfunded liabilities that they talking about. We're talking about over 159 trillion. Okay, 159. No, quite. I mean, the numbers. Look at these numbers, folks. This is the unfunded liabilities. This is not funded, but this is what we bring in. Okay, 21 trillion. Right here, 21 trillion is the gross domestic product. All right, and just in our unfunded liabilities alone, not including Medicare. Here it is: Social Security, Medicare, and unfunded liabilities. Liability per citizen. The problem is debt, folks. But this problem is not something that they didn't know. This is not something that was unforeseen. This is something that was calculated and expected to happen, right? And this is why, and I'm gonna show one last thing here. Somebody always calls you doing a live stream, okay? One more thing here that you want to notice. Remember I told you that US debt clock has more accurate numbers in the sense of, they're not manipulated in the way that they want to count the numbers. You know how they say the unemployment numbers are this and that, but yet if you've been unemployed for over 6 months or 12 months, whatever it is, they don't count you anymore, even though you're still unemployed. You know those manipulated rigged numbers. Okay. Well, look at this right here. This says dollar to silver ratio. Okay. Right now, they're killing the spot price of silver, making it look unattractive, suppressing the value of the most undervalued asset on the planet. But they got an ounce of silver over almost $5,000 for 1 ounce of silver, accounted for the M2 money supply. You see, what's interesting about this, folks, is that this is accounted for the M2 money supply. That's just the Federal Reserve's creation of money. That's not including the banks, fractional reserve banking model where they're creating even more value out of nothing. Okay. And now they can loan out 100% of whatever you put in the bank. Okay. So the reserve requirements are zero. So when you put $100 in the bank can loan out all 100. Before, they had to keep some on reserves in case you asked for it. No, they got rid of that. And the Bank of International Settlements has changed the rules or the class of gold to a tier 1 asset. It's a tier 1 asset accepted for 100% value, zero risk associated with this. That's the BIS, the central bank for central banks. Okay. And so you see here, it says dollar to gold ratio over $34,000, almost $35,000 per ounce. And once again, let me see if I can pull it up here. The US dollar silver ratio, the year over year increase in the US M2 money supply divided by the yearly world production of silver ounces. Folks, I want you to understand something. I know that this might be shocking to you to see that they're saying an ounce of silver is $4,874, or that an ounce of gold should be $34,924. Understand that those numbers are even lower. And what I mean by that, the numbers are actually higher for gold and silver. And why do I say that? Because the M2 money supply is just what the Federal Reserve created. It's not accounting for the banks creating 10 times as much as the Federal Reserve has given them. Okay? So particularly tonight, what I want to go over, I want to share this, but one interesting thing that they have on this site is called Money and Banking History. This is very key, okay? Because like I started this live stream off, the show off tonight, I started off talking about Maya Angelou's quote, okay? Maya Angelou's quote of you can't really know where you are going until you know where you have been. And in this country, okay, in this economic environment, the global monetary system, all right, for you to understand where the monetary system is going, you got to know how we got here. And then you got to know what the geniuses or the people of importance at that time were saying about where we are today and where we're going. But let me share this before I get into it, right? Because the Federal Reserve is a private banking cartel. They're not a part of the federal government, okay? We do not have to have a private central bank because the Treasury can print its own debt-free, interest-free notes. So as you can see here, it says a wealth-based, debt-free, non-interest-bearing money issued by the U.S. Treasury. You see, the U.S. Treasury could issue our notes right now, right? As opposed to having a private third-party central bank print the notes, and then they print the notes, and we have to pay the notes back, okay? And then we got to pay the notes back plus interest. So that creates a perpetual cycle of debt where you continually have to borrow and interest is applied. And you're going to see what the founding fathers and a lot of the people who are aware of what's taking place said about that type of a system and where we're going to be if they were ever allowed to be set up in this country, which at this point, the central bank owns the world. The central banks, the Federal Reserve, they own the world right now because they've created a pandemic where they were able to print masses of dollars, bail out everybody, and now they got all these assets on their balance sheet, right? So you see here it says in 1862, President Lincoln issued $450 million directly from the Treasury. These debt-free, interest-free notes were known as greenbacks, okay? A present challenge, okay, to the money powers and central banks at that time. On June 4th, 1963, President Kennedy signed Executive Order 11110, okay, issuing $4.3 billion directly from the U.S. Treasury, bypassing the Federal Reserve Bank, okay? These debt-free, interest-free notes were known as silver certificates, which I have one of them in my hand, okay? Silver certificates, because the dollar has value or had value because it was backed by gold and silver. This note right here is equal to 1 ounce of silver at that time. But now you need over 30 of these, 40 of these notes to get that same 1 ounce of silver, okay? Now, this is the issue that we have. A central bank, public enemy, global enemy, planetary enemy, number one. Central banks and the banks that grow up around them because they give us debt-based, interest-bearing money and notes. When we, the people, okay, with our government, through our treasury, can create our own notes that are interest-free and debt-free, okay? But let's go into the history now. Let's see how did we get here? What are some of the famous people of that time? Notable people talk about. So when you go to usdebtclock.org, they have it right here, the history of money and banking. And I'm going to try to go through as much of this as I can as fast as possible, okay? But I want you guys to get the message because this is a history lesson. This is fact. This is speaking of the reality of today, and it's going to help you understand where we are going, okay? And why you need to get as much physical gold and silver and the people's money, as Robert Kiyosaki will call it, cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, as you can, right? So now, it shows you here in the 1100s, because we're talking about the monetary system, the history of money and banking. So they're going back before we had paper. They talk about the tally sticks. The tally stick was a wealth-based money thrived from 1100 to 1826. System allowed for a counterfeit-free, interest-free medium of exchange. Okay. 1694, Bank of England, the first privately owned fractional reserve central bank, loaned money creation from nothing at interest. So this is the first inception of a private central bank. You find it in England, okay? In England. Now remember, the colonists left England for this type of oppression that we're about to show you here from these central banks, right? So 1694, Bank of England, privately owned fractional reserve central bank, loaned money created from nothing at interest, okay? Loaning you money from nothing at interest. 1694, William Patterson, who was the founder of the Bank of England, okay, he said the bank hath benefit of interest on all monies which is created out of nothing. They're acknowledging that they are benefiting from nothing. They are benefiting, they gave you nothing and take something, right? It's almost like the banks during the housing crisis. They created all these loans, bad loans or whatever have you. Matter of fact, they never really gave you anything. They just put some digits on the screen. They might not even have had the money, right? They might not even have had the money, but they gave you nothing. But as soon as you're unable to pay, guess what they're coming to take? The real physical thing, which is your home. Okay, in 1750, okay, now we're talking about colonial script, interest-free, wealth-based money issued by the colonies. So understand that it started in England, okay? Now the colonists left England for all the tyranny that they were under, which we are under today, okay? And they came over to the Americas, okay? And then they created their own money. They said, we're not going to be subject to the tyranny and the taxes and the debt-based system over there in England. We want our own money, okay? So they issued a colonial script, debt-free, interest-free notes. Now here's what Benjamin Franklin said about that, which is a U.S. statement, political theorist and inventor, 1763. I'm gonna read it. Benjamin Franklin says, okay, this is important, folks, because we are literally still living out and playing out this era, this issue that is still plaguing the planet, which is the central banks and this debt-based fiat monetary system. It's public enemy number one. Public enemy number one, folks. But Benjamin Franklin says, you see, a legitimate government can both spend and lend money into circulation, while banks can only lend significant amounts of their promissory banknotes, for they can neither give away nor spend but a tiny fraction of the money the people need. Thus, when your bankers here in England place money in circulation, there is always a debt principal to be returned and usury to be paid. The result is that you have always too little credit in circulation to give the workers full employment. You don't have too many workers. You have too little money in circulation. And that which circulates all bears the endless burden of unpayable debt and usury. Let me pause right there. For all those people who think it's a good idea to get stimulus checks and the government should just print money and the Federal Reserve should just print money, you know, to avoid a credit crisis, liquidity crisis like 2008, folks, it's coming at a cost greater than you can bear. But because most people don't understand, they accept, right? Until it's too late. Then they say, hold on, we didn't sign up for this. I wasn't aware of this. I don't want this. And by that time, they already got the camp set up. In the colonies, it says, in the colonies, we issue our own money. See, in Americas, at one point, we had issued our own money. It's called colonial script. We issue it in proper proportion to make the products pass easily from the producers to the consumers. In this manner, creating ourselves our own paper money, we control its purchasing power and we have no interest to pay no one. So we in debt. You paying taxes right now. Do you realize that you working 4 to 5 months out of the year, if not more, just to pay the Federal Reserve? The IRS is collecting the taxes for the Federal Reserve. I know you think it goes towards the schools and the roads. Come on, you drive on these roads. You know something ain't adding up. all this tax money that they're collecting from you, increasing taxes, and we got a new administration. They're going to increase taxes. They don't have no choice, right? But we don't have to have that type of debt and interest to pay when we printed our own money. So here we go. Now look what happened. The balance of power, okay? Because remember, at that time, England, hey, they ruled the world. At that point, they was the world superpower, okay? So 1763, Benjamin Franklin makes this statement before the London Parliament, okay? So he's telling the London Parliament this. He's telling them the direct threat that they have. So guess what they do? In 1764, the Currency Act. England outlawed all forms of paper money issued by the colonies. Now, this is what some people fear when we're talking about cryptocurrency. They're saying, well, where's the regulation? Right? Because look, this is the same scenario, folks. The people have found a way to create their own debt-free, interest-free money. We got cryptocurrency now. Okay? Now, the powers that be today, we're trying to figure out what kind of laws, what kind of regulatory ramifications are they going to put in for cryptocurrency, because it takes away power from the central banks and the Federal Reserve. Okay? It takes away their power. So you see they're doing it to XRP right now. What happened to XRP? I mean, it's still up a little bit, actually, but it's in a lawsuit. It's under investigation right now because we're waiting to see how the government responds to it. Well, the government of England, okay, in 1764, they outlawed all forms of other money issued by the colonies. They outlawed the colonies' money, right? So now, 1781, Bank of North America. Oh, y'all thought the Bank of America you got was the first Bank of America, huh? Look, I'm telling you, folks, ain't nothing new under the sun. We are literally reliving in an old story, a script. We just playing it out right now. Bank of America. This was the first U.S. privately owned fractional reserve bank. Okay, the first U.S. privately owned fractional reserve bank was in 1781. So do not think that the Federal Reserve that was certified, it wasn't ratified, created in 1913. That's not the first Federal Reserve central bank that we had in this country. Okay, so now it says it collapsed though in 1786. So that central bank, the Bank of North America, only lasts about 5 years due to massive British counterfeiting and a 41 times or X increase in the money supply. So folks, central banks have been here before and they have collapsed. Keep that in mind. So now in 1787, you have James Madison. James Madison, who was the president of the United States in 1809 from 1817. What did he say? History records that the money changers. Now you see, when I see money changers, for those who in the Bible and they believe in the Bible and the stories in the Bible, they talk about Jesus and the time that he got upset. He got upset was only one time, right? The money changers tore the place up. That was the number one offense, folks. The number one offense was the money changers. And we still fighting these money changers today, okay? History records that the money changers have used every form of abuse, intrigue, deceit, and violent means possible to maintain their control over governments by controlling money and its issuance. So you want to go out there and vote. You think that your vote matters. I'm telling you now, in regards to the Federal Reserve and the money powers, they care not about your vote. Okay? 1790, Mayor Amschel Rothschild. Now, y'all know the Rothschilds. A lot of conspiracies, a lot of Rothschilds. Ain't no more conspiracies now. It's only conspiracy truths at this point. Okay? This is what Rothschild said, okay? The founding father of international finance, okay? Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who makes his laws. So you want to put in Obama because he said hope and change, right? Gave you something to believe in again. Or you voted for Trump because he said, make America great, right? Drain the swamp, okay? And guess what the central bankers and the people who really control the world, they don't care who you put in power. to change the laws. They don't care about the laws because they control the money. They control the money. And so when you realize, and I realize, that it's not about voting, it doesn't matter who you vote for. When you're talking about attacking the problem at the root, it's attacking the problem at the monetary system, folks. This is the information that they don't want to know. This is why they took down my YouTube channel. All right, 1791, First Bank of America, 20-year charter, okay? 1791, the first bank of the United States. The first bank of the United States, 1791. It was a 20-year charter, okay? 20 years they're supposed to have, 80% privately owned central bank, a debt-based monetary system, killed by Congress in 1811. Well, good job for Congress at that time. I wish we had a Congress with a backbone to really do something for the American people today, instead of that dog and pony show they do up there, talking all this mess, acting like they care about the American people and their trials and tribulations while they're sitting up there getting paid for life. Okay? The hypocrisy, folks. So you see this is the history. This is, you got to know where we're going before you're going to know you got to know where we've been before you're going to know where we're going. So let's fast forward in time. Okay? 1793 to 1863. Okay? Here's Benjamin Franklin yet again. Okay? Now remember 1776. When I say some of these dates, I want you to think about what has transpired throughout those time periods in history. Wars, you know, anything of significance that might come to your mind. And a direct result, you can trace it back to the monetary system in the Federal Reserve. Trust and believe. Okay? 1793, Benjamin Franklin. Okay, this is what he said. The colonies would gladly have borne a little tax on tea. I'm going to pause right here. How many people have been told that the Revolutionary War was about tea and taxes, folks? Raise your hand. Go ahead and put me in the chat. If you were told that the Revolutionary War was about tea and taxes, put me in the chat. That's a lie, folks. Here's Benjamin Franklin quote right here. The colonies would have gladly bore a little tax. So look, Benjamin Franklin saying, look, man, we'd have paid a little bit of tax, man. We'd have paid a little bit of tax. But he said on other matters, had it not been that England took away the colonies their money. You see, the problem was not the tax. It's that England took away the colonies' debt-based interest-free money, which created unemployment and dissatisfaction. The inability of the colonies to get power to issue their own money permanently out of the hands of George III and the international bankers was the prime reason for the Revolutionary War. Okay? Put that on your Facebook and let people know what the real war was about. The war was not about taxes and tea. I remember in school, they threw the tea over in the water and it's because they were taxing tea. No, and that ain't make no sense. But you see how they taught us that in history? I didn't hear about this growing up in school. I didn't hear that the Revolutionary War was because they took away the colonies' ability to create their own debt-based, debt-free, interest-free money. That's a real reason to go to war. England is trying to enslave us at that time, okay, with their debt-based interest-bearing notes. Okay, look, this is what war was about. Okay, I want you to understand something. This is playing out today in greater magnitudes. Okay, 1802, Governor Morris, a U.S. senator. Okay, 1802, the rich will strive to establish their dominion and enslave the rest. Folks, the war, the battle, the future of what the humanity is going through right now is about two things: freedom and slavery. That's it. Freedom and slavery. That's what we're dealing with right now. A select group of people who want to enslave the rest of the world for their benefit, and the masses of people who just want freedom. Okay? So he says they always did, they always will. They will have the same effect here as elsewhere if we do not, by the power of government, keep them in their proper spheres. Well, look, the government has failed us, folks. The government today has failed us. They have not kept the Federal Reserve in check. And in fact, they brought Janet Yellen in the Treasury. Okay? They just let the Federal Reserve run the country at this point. The Federal Reserve runs the country. Joe Biden administration with no backbone, okay, it's got Janet Yellen, who was a chairman of the Federal Reserve, now in the Treasury. The Federal Reserve runs America, folks. Not you and not your vote. 1809, Thomas Jefferson, President of the United States, 1803 to 1811. Now, I love this one, okay? Jefferson said, I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies, okay? The banking institutions that we have today are more dangerous than China, are more dangerous than Russia, are more dangerous than Iran, are more dangerous than North Korea, are more dangerous than the Middle East. I hope you understand that. Because they want to tell you that it's those people over there in these other countries that's minding their own business, more than likely is the U.S. over there interfering with the economic hitmen over there trying to take advantage of their resources. Okay? But they won't tell you that the number one problem is the banking institutions. J.P. Morgan. Okay? And all of them. Already they have raised up a moneyed aristocracy that has set the government at defiance. The issuing power of money shall be taken away from the banks and restored to the people whom it properly belongs. That's why a lot of people voted for Trump. They thought Trump was going against the federal, and he had to do it in some kind of, strategic way. It didn't happen, folks. It didn't happen. Okay? The Federal Reserve is stronger than they've ever been. Here's another part of history. Okay? Here's another part of history we're going to show you really quick. 1815, Napoleon Bonaparte. Who heard about Napoleon Bonaparte, right? Emperor of France. Okay? He says, when a government is dependent upon bankers for money, they and not the leaders of the government control the situation. So, this government is dependent upon the Federal Reserve to print the money. So they're not in control, right? The government, Trump, Biden, it don't matter. They don't control what's going on. It's the money power. It's the central banks. He says, since the hand that gives, the hand that takes, money has no motherland. Financiers are without patriotism, without decency. Their sole object is gain. So do understand that when you're looking at Janet Yellen and Bernanke and Jerome Powell, okay, these people are without patriotism, without decency. Okay, do know that. 1816, we got the second bank of the United States, 20-year charter, 80% privately owned central bank, debt-based money system with a 50% fractional reserve, chartered, not renewed in 1813. You see, the Federal Reserve of today had a 100-year charter. I'm guessing it was renewed because after 2013, they should have been done. The 100-year time period was up, and I guess they got their charter renewed. We're going to look into that. 1820, John Adams, okay? 1820. All of the perplexities, confusion, and distress in America arise not from the defects of the Constitution or Confederation, not from want of honor or virtue, so much as from downright ignorance of the nature of coin, credit, and circulation. Folks, that sums it up. Everything that I know, believe, and I've been saying, I don't care when you talk about your health. I don't care if you talk about your environment. I don't care if you talk about your educational system. I don't care if you talk about politics. I don't care if you talk about religion. I don't care if you talk about health, sex, war. All of it comes down to the ignorance of people not knowing the central bank, the debt-based fiat monetary system, and how credit and debt and the circulation of it affects them. John Adams put it perfectly. It's all the problems that we have, folks, is from the central bank and debt-based fiat monetary system. Here's 1834, Andrew Jackson. He says, now Andrew Jackson, talking to the central banks now, okay? This is one of his greatest things. Andrew Jackson got rid of the banks. One of his greatest accomplishments, okay? You are a den of vipers and thieves, and I intend to root you out. And by the eternal God, I will root you out. If Congress has the right to issue paper money, it was given them to be used by themselves and not to be delegated to individuals or corporations. You see, Jackson stood on his square. He said, look, if we got the right to print our own debt-based or debt-free, interest-free money, guess what we're going to do? We're not going to allow you to force us to use your pieces of paper at debt and at interest. So it goes on to say, mischief springs from the power which the moneyed interest derives from a paper currency which they are able to control. A paper currency which they are able to control. And from the multitude of corporations with exclusive privileges which are employed for their benefit. They're talking about JP Morgan, okay? They're talking about the Bank of Americas, the Chase banks, okay? The major banks, Goldman Sachs, all of them. These corporations, they are the den of vipers and thieves, along with the Federal Reserve, the major banks. They got exclusive privileges, okay? So this is why I said the number one issue is not black and white, okay? It's not gay versus straight. It's not pro-choice and pro-life, okay? All of that is a distraction. The number one problem that people need to get around is central banks and the banks that have grew up around them today. So 1837, free banking era, state chartered bank based on fractional reserve system, states regulated reserve requirements, banknotes backed partially by gold and silver. Okay, 1863, the National Bank Act, uniform banknotes backed by U.S. Treasuries, fractional reserve led to bank runs. Okay, banks love to create money out of nothing. Okay, and then when you can't pay back the debt, they love to collect your physical asset, but they loaned you something that was never theirs. If I put $100 in the bank, that's my $100. Why are you loaning out my money? And then you ain't even cut me in on the deal. So you're going to put your money in the bank, folks. This is why you don't need money in the banks, folks. We got decentralized finance today. Okay. We got smart contracts. We got gold and silver money wallets. Folks, we decide. But we got to come together, okay? And we got to say to this third using that's taking our payments, we're no longer paying you in debt and an interest-bearing note. We want to pay you like this, right? 1863 National Bank Act, uniform banknotes backed by U.S. Treasuries. Okay, I read that one. Okay, so now we're going to go to 1862. Okay. 1862. Now, this is what I read before. Lincoln issues greenback, debt-free, interest-free money, $400 million of U.S. notes issued directly from the Treasury. Now, you know what happened to Lincoln, right? Now, Lincoln was the only president that happened to, right? The way it happened, okay? Well, no, they got Kennedy too. And Kennedy is the same one who issued money directly from the Treasury and bypassed the Federal Reserve, okay? Abraham Lincoln, 1864 says, the government shall create, issue, and circulate all the currency and credit needed to satisfy the spending power of the government and the buying power of consumers. By the adoption of these principles, the taxpayers will be saved immense sums of interest. Money will cease to be the master and become a servant to humanity. That needs to go on a shirt. Right now, money is the master of humanity. Money is having people commit and do things that they normally wouldn't have done because it goes against their natural state. It goes against their natural way of being. But because you grew up in poverty, because you have lack of access to proper schooling and opportunity, Because the healthcare system is trash, because of all these issues, money becomes your master to where you will do anything for it. Even kill your own brother, your own sister, right? That's what this fiat debt-based monetary system has done. The people who are locked up today, more than likely, most of them have done it for monetary reasons, okay? Because they didn't have access. And then you see they create this problem, and guess what? Now you're going to go out and try to figure out how to create some money, right? Well, then they're going to make it illegal for the way that you out here creating money. They're going to lock you up for selling a little bit of weed, right? Throw the book at you for selling a little bit of weed. See, everything ties into the monetary system, folks. So we need to, money is a servant to us. Money is a servant to us, to humanity. That's what it's supposed to be. We're not supposed to be controlled and manipulated. We got people selling their soul for pieces of paper. People will sell their body for pieces of paper, and they didn't want to. But because of the debt in this monetary system, the cost of living, inflation, and everything else, it forces people to do things for money that they normally would not have done. He goes on to say, the money power preys upon the nations in times of peace and conspires against it in times of adversity. Federal Reserve right now is conspiring against the American people. Janet Yellen is conspiring against the American people. It says it is more despotic than a monarchy. You know, Janet Yellen said we needed more debt, folks. She said we need to create, they're calling for more stimulus, folks. This is not a solution. You're not going to fix a debt-based problem by issuing more debt. Let me continue. More insolent than autocracy, okay? More selfish than bureaucracy, right? In the London Times, hold on, let me see if I can zoom out a little bit, y'all. This is the London Times. So this is a newspaper here, the London Times in 1865. London Times said, if that mischievous financial policy, which had its origins in North American Republic during the late war in that country, should become endurant down to a fixture, indurated down to a fixture, then the government will furnish its own money without cost. It will pay off its debts and be without debt. It will become prosperous beyond precedent in the history of civilized governments of the world. The brains and wealth of all countries will go to North America. That government must be destroyed, or it will destroy every monarchy on the globe. Folks, if that don't give you chills, okay, that's not me saying this. That was the London Times in 1865 acknowledging that America's ability to create its own debt-based debt-free, interest-free money will create such a prosperous situation for the people in America that anything has ever been seen throughout human history. And they said all the brains, all the wealth, this is why people come to America today, right? Will go to North America. And they said a system like that must be destroyed. Trust and believe they are destroying this country, folks, for that main reason, for your freedom, for your liberty, for your prosperity, for your ingenuity, okay? They're destroying this country, and they're doing it through the Federal Reserve and your ignorance of coin, debt, and circulation of it. Powerful statements, folks. Should give you chills. This is what the country should be run on. Ottoman von Bismarck, 1876, Chancellor of Germany. It's the Chancellor of Germany. Okay, remember, okay, they had their hyperinflation and everything else. Okay. The division of the United States into federations of equal force was decided long before the Civil War by high financial powers of Europe. These bankers were afraid that the U.S., if they remained as one bloc and as one nation, would attain economic and financial independence, which would upset the financial domination over the world. Folks, it's as clear as day where the problem lies and why we have that problem. Okay? He also goes to say the death of Lincoln was a disaster for Christendom. There was no man in the United States great enough to wear his boots, and the bankers went anew to grab the riches. I fear that foreign bankers, with their craftiness and torturous tricks, will entirely control and exuberate riches of America and use it to systematically corrupt civilization. Folks, I'm telling you, we are living in these times. All the problems that are happening in Africa, the poverty and everything else, and not all of Africa is poverty, okay? The continent, all right? But a lot of times that we're seeing in other parts of the world and Asia and everything, it comes down to the central banks and their use of America and the military arm and their economic hitmen to export their debt and their using into slavery across this planet. It all comes back to the central banks, their shareholders, and their owners. Okay, this is not me speaking. This is history. And you wonder where we're going today. We're in the last part of their plan, folks. They're almost done. They're getting ready to, we're in the final stages. I hope you understand that. Everything you're seeing right now is like the signs of in the biblical times of Noah or something, where you need to wake up. And instead of lamb's blood or something, okay, all right, is you need to get gold and silver. You need to wake up to what's going on. You need to start making certain preparations. Okay, 1881, James A. Garfield, President of the United States, 1881. Whoever controls the volume of money in any country is absolute master of all industry and commerce. And when you realize that the entire system is very easily controlled one way or another by a few powerful men at the top, you will not have to be told how periods of inflation and depression originate. So I want to understand something. There are a lot of people who believe, and which I believe as well, because I haven't seen enough evidence to substantiate otherwise, that the coronavirus was strategically released by the Federal Reserve and central banks. When you look at some of the information about the bioweapons lab over there and a lot of interested parties that have connections with that, and you understand the money powers of today and where the world is and where we're going, because we already supposed to be on some Jetson type of stuff, folks. The technology is so futuristic, but we're unable to bring it to the real because we got to get rid of the old. And the old don't want to go away. But inflation, financial crisis is all engineered by central banks. All of the wars that we have been through is all engineered by central banks. They are the benefactors of every war that has ever happened on this planet. Okay, a private entity. Here's the American Bankers Association. American Bankers Association on September 1st, 1894, we will not renew our loans under any consideration. On September 1st, we will end our money. We will foreclose and become mortgages in possession. We can take 2/3 of the farms west of the Mississippi and thousands of them east of the Mississippi as well at our own or at out our own price. Then the farmers will become tenants as England. So understand what your enemy, my enemy, the bankers, central banks, the debt-based fiat monetary system, what they're saying is we own everything, folks. And if we call in on those margins, we call in those loans, okay, we're going to bankrupt the system. We're going to foreclose on everything. Your home is not your home. Your car is not your car. Okay? You don't own that. The bank does. And if you don't do what the banks want and the central banks want, we're going to foreclose on everything. They said we'll take 2/3 of the farms west of Mississippi. And they got Bill Gates right now buying up all the farms. And you know he they henchman. Okay? 2/3 of the farms west of the Mississippi and thousands of them east of the Mississippi as well at their own price. The farmers will become tenants of England. And remember, you see, I mentioned the farms because you know how you control the people? Through the food. Yo, people got to eat, folks. People got to get access to clean water. You control people with food, okay? And that's a whole nother show, okay? But that's where we're going. So now we're catching up. Now, most of the people know this. 1913, okay? 1913, the Federal Reserve Act. Dum, dum, dum. Look, where's the scary music, the Halloween music or something at, right? When you need it, okay? The Federal Reserve Act, privately owned central bank, given exclusive power to issue money. Fractional reserve, debt-based, interest-bearing currency. Here's Charles Lindbergh, United States Congressman, 1907 to 1917. So here's a congressman. The Federal Reserve Act establishes the most gigantic trust on earth. Gigantic question on earth. When President Wilson signs this bill, the invisible government of the monetary power will be legalized. The worst legislative crime of ages is perpetuated by this banking and currency bill. The worst legislative crime in ages. Okay? Federal Reserve, public enemy number one. Now, Woodrow Wilson, who was the president at that time. Now look, you're gonna say, well, Rick, he's doing too hard on the. I don't know what he's talking about. I love this because this is not me talking. This is what Woodrow Wilson said. Woodrow Wilson, who was the president at that time, said, "I am a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country." You see, we're in a ruined country right now. A great industrial nation is controlled by its system of credit. Our system of credit is concentrated. The growth of the nation, therefore, and all of our activities are in the hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in civilized world. No longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men. Well, you don't have to believe me, folks. Woodrow Wilson, the president at that time, who set it up, regrettably, supposedly, okay, that's his words. And you want to understand the problem that we have today. Thomas Edison in 1921. Now remember, now we get into the Great Depression. We get into certain time periods in history that I'm caught up to. I want you to think about the wars and the bankruptcies and the depressions and things that I went through during that time period. Okay, 1921. If our nation can issue a dollar bond, it can issue a dollar. The element that makes the bond good makes the bill good. Also, the difference between the bond and the bill is the bond lets money brokers collect twice the amount of the bond and an additional 20%, whereas the currency pays nobody but those contribute directly in some useful way. It is absurd to say that our country can issue $30 million in bonds and not 30 million in currency. Both are promises to pay, but one promise fattens the user and the others help people. Gold and money are separate things. Gold is a trick mechanism by which you can control money. That is the root of all evil. So understand this. What he's saying is if we can issue treasury bills and the treasury bills have value because their ability to and the government's ability to borrow, we should be able to create our own money. We should be able to $30 million debt-free, interest-free, right? So Joseph Stamp, 1926, president of Bank of England. The president of the Bank of England. Banking was conceived in iniquity and was born in sin. The bankers own the earth. Take it away from them, but leave them the power to create deposits. And with the flick of a pen, they will create enough deposits to buy it back again. However, take it away from them, and all the great fortunes like mine will disappear. And they ought to disappear. For this would be a happier and better world to live in. But if you wish to remain the slaves, remember I told you our problem today? We are slaves today. I know even if you make a lot of money, you feel like you're not a slave, you're still a slave. Slaves of bankers, and pay the cost of your own slavery. Let them continue to create deposits. That was the president of the Bank of England, Sir Joseph Stamp. 1922, we got Henry Ford. And I'm gonna speed this up here. I'm gonna finish it up in a little bit. 1922, Henry Ford, founder of Ford Motor Company. It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there will be a revolution before tomorrow morning. Folks, there needs to be a revolution by tomorrow morning. But the problem is people are dumbed down. They're drinking fluoridated water. Okay, fluoridated toothpaste, pineal gland calcified. They don't know whether to fight or flight. They're obese. They're poisoning us with the high fructose corn syrup, the food coloring, the GMOs. Okay, they put stuff in the air. They got so much debauchery and triflingness on the TV and in the music. You can't think straight. You don't know where to go, left or right. So much propaganda. You're worried about celebrity lifestyles and everything else. So you will never wake up to the number one problem. 1930, the Bank of International Settlements, the central bank of central banks, was set up. Okay, there's a privately owned bank in Basel, Switzerland. The Bank of International Settlements was established by the Hague Agreement in 1930 and represents 57 central banks. So they want to take over the world now, folks. They planned this a long time ago. What we are experiencing is something that they planned out a long time ago. This is not a new thing. It's not a surprise. It's not by accident that we got here. This was all planned out. And they just had to tweak it along the way based on how we responded and based on the conditions at that time. But the end goal remained the same. Here's 1932, Louis McFadden, right? Most people think the Federal Reserve banks are the United States government's institutions. They are not government institutions. They are private credit monopolies which prey upon the people of the United States for the benefit of themselves and their foreign swindlers. We have in this country one of the most corrupt institutions the world has ever known. I refer to the Federal Board. This evil institution has impoverished the people of the United States and has practically bankrupted our government. It has done this through the corrupt practices of moneyed vultures who control it. United States congressmen, okay? After that, they set up in 1944 the International Monetary Fund, an international organization that oversees the global financial system, established to stabilize exchange rates and assist the reconstruction of the world's international payment system. Folks, all the central banks, IMF, World Bank, all they are in existence for is to get you into debt to where a point where you will never be able to pay it back, okay, with the interest, and then they own you. And then they're going to start telling you how to run your country, okay? It's happening. And then they buy your politicians, corrupt politicians everywhere, presidents all over the place. So last slide here. Good, awesome. We're catching up, Rick. We're almost done, folks. You know, I know a lot of us slept through history class, okay? But this is why a lot of people are in the financial problems that they're in, because they didn't know the difference between money and currency, credit and debt, assets, liabilities, okay? 1944, Bretton Woods, a 44-nation agreement to regulate the international monetary system. Each country was to adopt a monetary policy that maintained the exchange rate of its currency within a fixed value, plus or minus 1% to gold. Okay, to gold. All right. 1960. Now remember, throughout this time, we got wars going on. Not everybody's agreeing. Not everybody is benefiting. Some people are becoming problems. So we got to go. The Federal Reserve has got to use the United States to go over into this other country because they buck in the system. But we got to say it's because they got a dictator as a president or ruler, and we got to go give them democracy. We got to go give them freedom. They're treating their people so badly, and people just believed it. Okay? And it's all a lie. 1963, U.S. Treasury notes issues $4.3 billion in interest, debt-free Treasury notes. First time since Lincoln. Okay? Look what happened to Lincoln, and then look what happened to Kennedy. Okay? Now, President Kennedy, on June 4th, 1963, President Kennedy signed a presidential document called Executive Order 111. It gave the Treasury Department the explicit authority. Imagine that in 1963. You know, central banks believe they run the world at this point. They got the IMF set up. You know, I mean, the Federal Reserve has been running now for 50 plus years, and they've been controlling and manipulating everything. And here comes Kennedy. Who do you think you are? Almost reminds me like Jesse Jackson telling Obama, who does he think he is to cut his balls off? Or who else he talk about? Obama says to Trump, who does he think he is? You can't just do what you want to do, right? And even though none of them have done anything, okay? But the point is, here comes Kennedy. Who does he think he is? Just gonna, you know, take the power away from the central banks. So what he does is he issues silver certificates against any silver bullion, silver or standard silver dollars in the Treasury. 5 months after Kennedy's assassination, okay, so right after they killed him, okay, all series 1958 silver certificates were removed from circulation. Now, why would they do that? Why would they do that, folks? Because now you're starting to, the unveiling is happening. Here's the unveiling. You're now seeing who the real man of perdition is. You're now seeing the real enemy of the American people. You're now seeing the devil. Okay? This is what we are battling against. Not against Kim Jong-un, Rocket Man, okay? Not against China, Xi, and Putin. Okay, not our problems, folks. Oh, China's a competitor. We got to stop China. China. No, we need to stop the Federal Reserve. We need to stop these central banks and the banks that grow up around them. We need to take control of our monetary system and start to really bring back. That's what I thought he meant by make America great again. Okay? Make America great. Now, some people say, well, when was this country ever great? Okay? Now, I get that argument. But when this country had debt-free, interest-free notes, it was great for everybody in that country because it evened the playing field. Okay? It served the people. It created the ability for you to create prosperity, not servitude. All right? 1971. Here comes Richard Nixon. Okay? We know him. He's one of the arms of the Federal Reserve. Okay? On August 15, 1971, the United States unilaterally terminated convertibility of the dollar to gold as established under the Bretton Woods Agreement. This action created a system where currencies would float in the international market and compete for value as commodities. Okay? This was the worst thing that could happen to the American people. The American people relied on the dollar. The dollar was backed by gold and silver. It kept governments in check. Now, without the dollar being backed by any gold or silver, the central banks and the government can do whatever they want to this planet under the guise of whatever they want to, and who's to stop them, right? 1983, okay, local exchange trading system, nonprofit, interest-free local credit, a mutual credit system that operates through local networks and as many countries around the world provides an alternative method for individuals to monetize their own labor. In 1999, the euro money, okay, then they set up in Europe the euro, a collective currency of 16 of the 27 member European nation states, fractional reserve, debt-based, interest-bearing currency with bank reserve requirements ranging from 2 to 12. Okay, so look, as I close out the show for tonight, I know that was a little long. Shout out to the runners who stayed on, folks. I felt that this is important. This is the most important thing of today because it breaks down where we have been so we can understand where we're going. Okay, the way that this country is going, everybody's going to be homeless and poor on the shores of this country, of this continent, okay? And that was said by, I think it was Jefferson or Franklin or one of them, to the effect that, once again, the central banks is the number one enemy on this planet. So look, this is why we promote, as a runners, and this is what we say, look, save your money, build wealth and precious metal assets. Get as much physical gold and silver as you can. Get as much physical gold and silver as you can. Okay, because we are seeing right now the largest wealth transfer in history taking place. We are seeing a global monetary reset. Okay, and you want to be in position. This is an opportunity for you to create massive wealth for yourself and your family because ain't no stopping it at this point, folks. We're aware of the problem. We know who the enemy is, but now it's just got to play out. There's literally nothing that we can do at this point, from my perspective, that we can do to stop. The momentum is beyond, you can't stop it, okay? Now all you got to do is wait for the fallout, right? And hope that you've prepared the best you can because the fallout is coming, and then hopefully you're in position to rise out of it in a greater position for not only yourself but for generations to come. Okay? So look, with that being said, shout out to the runners. Look, the runners.shop. The runners.shop. We got merch coming out, or it's already out. Go get the merch. The runners.shop. Also, if you're running with the runners in 7K Meadows, we got Salt Lake City coming up in May. Come on, show out. Get your shirts. Meet the owners. We fired up about this company and this Sound Money Wallet. And if you fired up about the Sound Money Wallet, folks, they got some big news coming out that's bigger than the Sound Money Wallet, okay? You want to be there. You want to be seen. You want to be known, okay? And so today is Saturday night. So there's no show, of course, on Sunday and Monday. Monday at 10 p.m., we got the corporate call for those who running with the runners in 7K. And then we'll see you guys tomorrow. Mike will be with me as well. Tuesday at 9:30. So I'll see you guys at that time. Everybody have a great night. Be safe. Catch you guys on the next live stream. Ricardo Hamilton, aka Crypto Rick, signing off. Lace up. Let's get wealthy. I'm out. Peace.